Welcome to the Macabre Podcast Universe. Here we go again.
We're your hosts,
Micah
and Jordan.
And we actually have been married and are still married.
That sounded weird.
Yeah, it did. And we're going to continue to be married.
Yes.
Agreed?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
I do as well.
Today we are talking about Age of Ultron. Finishing up Phase 2.
No, there's one more Phase 2 movie.
What?
Ant-Man.
Oh.
Yeah. Which is, it's kind of weird. Why? Like, this is like you'd think this is the finale, and then Phase 3, the first movie, should be Ant-Man, right?
Why did they do that?
And then
do you know why?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure because I remember watching Ant-Man and it's kind of self-contained. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, this movie has just made this movie Age of Ultron has shown me that the entire universe is more self-contained than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, opinions changing today for Jordan.
Yeah.
On this movie.
What is it? Wait, what do you mean? It's
because when I first saw this movie, I hated it.
Uh-huh.
It was so boring, and I didn't care about anything that was going on, and I forgot a lot of it because I was so bored.
Yeah.
And on this rewatch, there were so many things that we will get into that I was just like, that makes sense now. That makes sense now.
Yeah.
That makes sense now.
All the stone stuff is pretty cool now.
Yeah.
All the stuff that before we saw Infinity War, I didn't care about or
they're like Easter eggs.
Mm-hmm. And as we talked about last week, they're kind of like reverse MacGuffins.
Uh-huh.
So let's pop right in. This one is a movie that's directed by Joss Whedon. So this is his second movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. His first one was, of course, Avengers. And he kind of, at this point in time, was like he was the kind of the creative guy. He was the Russo brothers at the time. Like, it was him and Kevin Feige kind of running the studio.
Mm-hmm.
And as we'll see in a few minutes, this is when he also makes his departure because of creative differences. So this is directed by Joss Whedon, produced by Kevin Feige, written by Joss Whedon, music by Brian Tyler and Danny Elfman.
Brian Tyler from Guardians.
Yeah. No.
That's Tyler Bates.
Yes, this is Brian Tyler from Thor: The Dark World.
Okay.
Danny
was the last
Elfman.
person? Danny Elfman did.
Yeah, they both did the score.
For this movie?
Mm-hmm. And
wow,
then
I didn't know Danny Elfman worked with other people.
Yeah, only Tim Robbins is what I was going to say, but Tim Burton is the name you're thinking of, and the one I was trying to think of. We got cinematography by Ben Davis, who did Guardians and 3 Billboards. So if you listen to last week's episode, same cinematographer. Mm-hmm. Budget? Should you want to take a stab at it?
We don't do guessing on budgets.
I always want to get you to guess. It's $250 million.
Okay.
And then domestically, the movie makes $459 million.
Not bad.
$5,868. Worldwide, it makes $1,405,403,694. And it comes out May 1st, 2015. And that's not any of my production notes. That's just setting the table. And I was hoping you could serve the appetizer.
Oh, with my stuff?
Yeah.
I don't have much, but I do have some.
Okay.
So, you have, as the main villain, James Spader, who's been around the block before coming into this scene.
Mm-hmm. Do we know if this is post Robert California or pre? Do we know?
Pre.
Pre.
Well, I guess if you really want me to look it up. Whatever.
Because I do just kind of imagine Robert California from The Office when I watch this movie a little bit.
This is going to take me a minute because of you.
Here, you keep talking. I'll check it.
Okay. Thank God. Well, now I have to get back to where I was.
Uh-oh. This is a...
Okay. So, he's been around since like 1978 acting.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that jumped out to me that he did in 1986 is Pretty in Pink, where he plays the mean boy, the bully boy. But he's also a prep boy. And if no one has seen that movie...
He's the mean boy, he's also the prep boy. Okay.
If no one's seen that movie, I'm not a fan of the movie. I'll say that. However, it's worth watching because you see a very, very young James Spader, and you're watching him and you're like, oh, he was a good looking person at one point, just because he's older now.
Yeah.
You know, and his voice sounds 100% the same as it does today.
There's no like, it's not higher or less weathered or anything like that.
It's like he was the perfect casting choice for that role because of his voice and the way. Yeah. So that really threw me off when I watched that movie.
Yeah.
I could go on and on about that movie, but we're not today.
I've never seen that movie.
Like I said, watch it just for him.
Okay.
He's in Frasier.
Yeah.
Stargate. Seinfeld.
Yeah.
The Office is Robert California.
Which happened a couple of years before this.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was right. Lincoln.
Oh, yeah.
And I know people, huge James Spader fans, I am skipping over just like so much because he's in so many things.
Yeah.
But this is like, I feel like our generation who might be listening to this podcast more than other generations will probably like, oh yeah, he's in that and that and that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there is, kind of an element of going into this movie with the knowledge of like the weirdness of Robert California.
Yeah.
I honestly think that's kind of in like part of the intention of casting him is like
interesting.
The people who are watching that show and stuff like that. I don't know, because there's kind of like a similar ideology in both of them. I don't know. I could be totally wrong. It seems like there's a clear through line for me on those two characters.
Okay. I bet a lot of people would agree with that. Something that I found really interesting.
Like you don't though.
Oh gosh, something I find really interesting is his only acting credit after this movie is Blacklist.
Yeah,
the show's been around for a while now.
Is it still on air?
I saw like 2013 to 2019. Veronica and Troy, if you ever listen to this, you could give us the answer. They're huge Blacklist fans.
Really?
Yeah, but it's interesting. I mean, he is the main character. There's just a lot of times when actors are even leads in shows, they're still doing other things.
Yeah.
But I think he really committed to this.
Yeah.
And I've seen a couple episodes and it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not my kind of show, but it was definitely like thrilling.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. And then you have Aaron Taylor Johnson, who plays Quicksilver. Mm-hmm. We call him Quick Boy.
We did call him Quick Boy.
He has been around for a little while too. He's not that old though. He's only like 4 years older than us.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So he's in Shanghai Nights in 2003, The Illusionist in 2006, Kick-Ass 2010, Kick-Ass 2 2013, Godzilla 2014.
That's the first time I saw him.
Me too. Well, unless you saw Kick-Ass before that.
I didn't.
Nocturnal Animals after Age of Ultron. Yeah. I just thought it was interesting because I didn't realize that was him.
Yeah. He's a bad dude in that movie.
Oh, did it lose my spot? Okay, so then the only other person that I looked at was Elizabeth. What's her name? Olsen.
Yes. Okay.
So she is sister of Mary-Kate and Ashley.
Okay. So she didn't make it to triplet status.
No, she didn't. Didn't quite make it.
Dang.
But she is in a Mary-Kate and Ashley movie, How the West Was Fun. I have not seen that one. Have you seen that one? That
sounds like a good one. I was more into the Lost in New York one or whatever.
Yeah, I think I liked that one
Battle of New York. Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen in Battle of New York.
No, it's not called that.
I know.
There is, whatever. Veronica was very into Mary-Kate and Ashley.
Was she?
Yeah. And then she was in an episode of Full House as Girl with Flowers.
Wow.
Which is her sisters are in that show. Yeah. And then she's in Kill Your Darlings, a movie I've always wanted to watch, but always looks kind of boring to me.
Kill Your Darlings.
It's got Dane DeHaan and Daniel Radcliffe, and they're two poets.
Oh, okay.
And I think that...
Can you show me the cover? Do you have it right there? Oh, I do not know about that movie.
I've always wanted to see this movie, but I think it always kind of looks a little boring to me.
Yeah.
But I think I've heard it's good. She is in Old Boy, the American version. She is also in
I hate that they remade that movie.
Yeah.
Old Boy, it's just like if for the listener at home, it's just like it's a Korean movie and it's really disturbing and stuff. And it's just one of those movies where it's like it's just a singular experience. There's no way you can replicate it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just was so dumb that they remade that movie.
Yeah. Jordan's favorite foreign film.
Yeah. It is disturbing, though.
It is.
Be
but
prepared
it's
to be disturbed if you're going to watch it.
It's not for the faint of heart.
No.
Some of the best action, though.
Yeah. Very cool sequences.
And then she's in Godzilla. That's right before Age of Ultron.
And she is her and Aaron Taylor Johnson are married in that movie.
Mm-hmm. But they're brother and sister. They're twins in this movie.
Yeah, kind of funny.
And then I forgot that she's in Wind River. That came out.
That's right, yeah.
A couple years ago.
Well, but, she's also in Avengers, Infinity War, Avengers, and...
Yeah. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, so I'm going to throw you just such an eye roller of a production note.
Getting ready to roll my eyes.
Because this is just like what you would say if you're ever going to make a sequel.
Okay.
So that people will go, oh, wow, I'm excited. Whedon said, because he's talking about the 2 best sequels ever made. He goes, Whedon said he looked to Empire Strikes Back and Godfather 2 as inspiration. Why even say that? Of course you're going to do that. Those are the 2 best sequels ever made.
That's ridiculous. It's a little pretentious to be.
Yeah, I mean, although at the same time, it was probably in a long interview, and that's probably just one of the things he said. So I shouldn't hold that against him.
He's pretentious now.
Captain Marvel was in an earlier draft of the movie.
Interesting.
But they didn't have an actress yet, so they were kind of let's not rush into this character.
Cool.
Let's save it.
Cool.
They almost filmed a scene where Hulk's jet is detected near Saturn. At the end of the movie, but they decided not to do it because there's this really famous storyline called Planet Hulk, where he goes to another planet, and I think he rules there or something like that.
Rules
or something like that, and then
not rolls.
Rules.
Okay, sounds like you're saying rolls.
I don't know if he rules there, and I don't know if I'm still throwing you off with the way I'm pronouncing that, But anyway, he's in this other planet, and it's called Planet Hulk. It's the most famous Hulk storyline. But they didn't want to tease that. Oh. Although they do draw inspiration from it in Ragnarok, because I think it's that kind of idea.
I didn't know that. That's
cool. Marvel and Fox both own the rights to Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, which are the 2 twins. And so they had to avoid calling them mutants for clarity's sake.
Okay.
So classically, Scarlet Witch and
Quicksilver
are both X-Men. So what's weird is at the same time, I think maybe even the same year, X-Men Days of Future Past comes out, and Quicksilver's in that movie, but it's a different actor, and he looks different and stuff like that.
That's Evan Peters.
Yeah, Evan Peters. That's right. So Disney. So I said that the budget was $250, I think, earlier.
Something like that.
But Disney spent $330.6 million on Avengers: Age of Ultron from February 2013 to November 2014, but $50.7 million of this was offset by payments from the UK tax authority. A report on actual production costs for films from Film LA Incorporated indicated a gross budget of $444 million with a net of $365 million for Avengers: Age of Ultron. This makes this the second most expensive film ever made.
After what? Apocalypse Now?
I think... I'm not sure. It might still be Spider-Man 3. And
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Spider-Man 3 was insane.
Oh.
But I don't know how they break down the new Avengers movies, if they're the most expensive movies. Because I think they're the most expensive, but since they filmed them at the same time, I don't know if it counts as that. I don't know how that breaks down. But and that's a direct quote from Wikipedia. Marvel wasn't into the Hawkeye farm and characters experiencing dreams, so Whedon had to fight for those sequences.
I'm glad he did.
Eric joining in cave was a quote, well, you have to keep the cave scene or we are cutting the farm scene.
What cave scene?
So what happened? Actually, this breaks down a little bit further down here. So this is a quote from Joss Whedon, because what happened is once the movie comes out, Joss Whedon starts talking about how he had creative differences and he was not able to put out the movie that he wanted to put out. And so he's kind of upset. He's typically had a good working relationship with Marvel, and now he's doesn't want to work with them anymore. Mm-hmm. So he says, quote, the original scene, now he's talking about when Eric and Thor go to that cave.
Who's
in
Eric?
the water. He's the guy from Thor: The Dark World.
Yeah. Okay.
He said the original scene was that they went to speak to the Norns, referring to female beings in Norse mythology who control destiny. Basically, Norns are analogous to the Fates in the Greek mythology. How it would work was he goes into the pool and the Norns possess him, basically, and Eric Selvig asks all the questions and the Norns speak through Thor, give the answers. The scene, as originally written and shot, didn't play well for test audiences, Whedon said. He has a couple of theories about that. First, the test audience saw an effects-sparse early cut, and it's also the kind of scene that would work well in a Thor movie steeped in mythology, but not so well in an Avengers movie. Mm-hmm. Thus, almost all of that was lost in the theatrical cut of the movie. So they had him do this cave scene, and he wasn't really into the cave scene. Mm. But Marvel basically said, like, well, you want to do these dream sequences with all the characters, and you want to do this Hawkeye farm scene, so if you want those in the movie, we're forcing you to have the cave scene in the movie. So they like put him up against a wall on that.
Yeah.
And so he was forced to put that in the movie, even though he didn't want to put it in the movie. And the original, and that some of those were quotes from a Polygon interview.
The Pentagon?
And the final cut of the movie was 3 hours and 15 minutes.
Too long.
That was the first cut of this movie. So that's all I got. And then
that was much less than you made it seem like it would be.
Yeah, I kind of I think on Ant-Man I have. Oh, there's a bunch on Ant-Man too. Okay. Because, well, we'll get into it next week. But you know, Ant-Man was supposed to be directed by Edgar Wright and stuff. So that all changed. But so this is like the end of kind of an era in Marvel, and then from this point forward, it kind of becomes the Russo brothers show. For better in some cases and for worse in other cases. And I think ultimately we've landed in a pretty nice spot. But anyway, I want to kind of pay close attention to that as we're going about on the rest of this episode, because I think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So, jump into the movie?
Okay.
So the movie starts, they attack this Hydra base, and there's this one shot. I mean, it's really fake one shot. It's not real, but it's showing all the characters attacking all these people in like some other countries, so like Eastern Europe, and there's snow everywhere, and it's pretty cool. I will say the effects, a lot of the effects in this movie are really good.
But some of them are so bad.
Some of them are so bad.
There are some good highs, and there are some big lows.
Yeah, because I like I like the idea of the one shot at the beginning of the movie, but I think looking at it just 4 years later, I'm like, it's kind of an ugly shot.
Yeah. Because
it's just weird.
Yeah,
I couldn't put my finger on it. It'd be fun to see those guys who, the Corridor crew on YouTube, like analyze the scene because it looks really odd.
What I do like of that shot, though, is that the part when all of the Avengers are in one frame and it slows down. Like, that's very cool and very epic.
And isn't that called a splash page on comic books?
Oh, what does that mean?
I think that's called a splash page, which is a really cool thing that Joss Whedon is really good at. Let me make sure it's that. Splash page. Oh, no. It's not called that. But never mind.
But is that a thing?
But that idea of like, you know, in Avengers 1, there's that scene where the camera circles around them as they're all like gearing up to battle in New York. And this happens several times in this movie where they actually look like comic book panels, but it's still alive. So it's not like I remember we talked about in the first Thor movie, how Kenneth Branagh did all those weird angles and they looked comic booky, but almost to a fault. Yeah. Where it's like, this is a different medium, like stop doing so many crazy angles.
Yeah.
But Joss Whedon visually has a really good understanding of like, let's make this look like a comic book, but then let's add this really cool slow motion movement. And then, you know, when all of them are lined up, it's just like, oh, that's like when you just flip the page in a comic book and you see this huge, you know, when a comic book like fills up a whole page or like more panels than usual and you see a big section like that. There's a lot of those in this movie, and
I'm into it.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
Yeah. So are they there to get information from them?
So they're there I believe to recover the scepter.
That's right, the scepter from the first Avengers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which Loki stole at the Loki. How did they lose the scepter? I don't know.
Whatever. The bad guys end up with it, and they're dealing with it now.
Mm-hmm. And then there's that weird thing that I wanted to briefly discuss, where Scarlett Johansson like jumps on this guy's neck and does these like whip kick things, and it's just this weird phenomenon that happened, I think, since Iron Man 2, where when a girl is a bad guy in a movie, she is a good guy in a movie, she's at some point gonna jump and like face hug a guy's face with her legs and like break his neck with her legs. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's just like a weird thing that it's like everyone agreed in Hollywood. They're like, this is what girls do now in action movies.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. I don't know. It's just one of those funny phenomenons that I don't think anyone consciously was like, let's do this, but it just is like here now. I would love if someone out there like knew why that was a thing.
Yeah, because to me, I'm thinking, and I don't mean to like just totally jump way forward with this and like be out of line, but it seems a little sexual.
Yeah,
to me. I
think maybe that does play something into it, but I think it just kind of looks cool. But it's kind of like,
but like sexy cool. To me, that's what.
Yeah,
that's what I think of, and I could just be like way out of line thinking that.
Yeah, I just think it's one of those things like when when the Bourne movies came out, and everyone was like, okay, now we're doing this kind of action, and everyone just like decides to do it whether they're like conscious of it or not.
What kind of action would you say that is?
Well, like the really like a lot of cuts, like janky, crazy thing. Which was cool in those movies, and then it was like it's gone too far.
Yeah.
But now the John Wick series is like bringing like better action back, because I think now people are like, let's do the John Wick thing.
Yeah.
Longer cuts, and actually
don't forget Mission Impossible too.
Yeah, but I mean, well, no, yeah, there's a lot of physical. Yeah, you're right. Mission Impossible as well.
Yeah.
And then during this sequence, they're attacking this Hydra base, and these other Iron Man people, these other Iron Man suits like go into this town, and they're like telling people to go away, and you see that people are not too happy with the Avengers being in there. Specifically Stark,
because that plays into, because the twins, the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, are at this base, and the Avengers don't know about them. And they're getting the scepter. Like Tony is about to get the scepter. He's like right up there, and the Scarlet Witch like puts a spell on him, and she reveals his worst fear, and it's all of the Avengers dead as those huge alien ships are going to Earth to destroy it.
Yeah.
So, but to him, he sees it as like a prophecy almost.
Yeah.
But it's just her, like whatever his worst fear is, she's making it look like as a prophecy. Yeah. There's some like pretty interesting things with her that, like, with her character, they do some things that I wish they would continue with her character throughout the series, and some things I wish they, like, I'm glad they stopped doing. Yeah. Like those weird horror movie cuts, like that really weird cut.
Oh yeah.
Like I understand.
Right when you're introduced to her, they do these weird like The Grudge, like quick cut things that look really misplaced. It's
too out of place. You can do, like, there are other horror movie shots that I think that they did that worked with her. That just doesn't work.
Well, and they don't really go any further with it beyond that one scene, so it's kind of
they do only like a couple more times.
Yeah,
but like I wish that they used her mind powers more in the other movies.
Yeah,
I don't know how, because it worked for the story in this movie. But in the other movies, it just looks like she has telekinesis. That's it.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to spoil this yet, but we are almost at the point, we're getting really close to where, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but where people's powers don't really matter anymore. Yeah. And I'll expand upon that later. The teaser for that is the importance and the uniqueness of people's powers right around phase 3 starts becoming like, it doesn't matter what powers you have as long as you can punch hard. And I'm not even saying that in a negative way. I think there's some legitimate reasons for why that is that I'll explain. But I gotta wait until I get to the movie where I feel like it is worth
The right
discussing
time.
the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we see that the locals are not happy with Iron Man. There's like graffiti in the background of Iron Man with like his face
Etched
painted
out.
over
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And then we get introduced to Quicksilver, and we get introduced to, and I thought Scarlett Johansson was going to take this cake in the whole series from Iron Man 2, but he wins worst hair in the whole series.
Yeah, he's got some pretty bad hair.
It's very bad.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of decision was that?
I don't know. You know what's fun about Incredibles? Because Dash it has the same powers.
Yeah.
His hair is the artwork on his hair. It's like brushed back. He has brushed back hair, no matter if he's running or not. But it's because of his powers. His hair is like that now.
Yeah.
And I think that is such a cool touch. I think if they did that,
noticed that.
I think that if they did that in real life, it might look kind of dumb. But I think they could have done a version of something like that like showed a direct effect of his power. Would be more fun. This just looks like he bleached his hair when he was 16 and hasn't bleached it since.
Yeah, and I think they're going like, okay, I mean, I don't know much about his character, but I'm assuming that he has a silver costume, Quicksilver.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're gonna do the weird hair, like, why not just commit to him having a really odd, crazy costume? That's what I would say.
Yeah, because he's wearing just like workout clothes.
Yeah, he's just wearing like an Under Armour suit that's kind of like gray, and then he has the dumbest looking hair I've ever seen, and it looks like his hair looks bad on him.
Oh yeah, it doesn't fit the actor.
Yeah, and then you see a picture of him from earlier in his life, and he has just brown hair. He looks normal. There was that like picture on a shelf, and you're kind of like, okay,
yeah.
Like either make him look really cool or just make him look normal.
Yeah.
Don't go in between because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's funny too because there's that scene later in the movie where he tosses his sister her red leather jacket. And it's just the jacket isn't colorful enough to like make note of. It's just kind of a red
leather jacket
that she wears in all the movies that doesn't look cool at all. And it's like, that's the one thing you decided to carry over from her character.
I would argue that her costume, at least in this movie, looks witchy.
Yeah, it looks really boring to me.
Yeah, I'm not like disagreeing with that. I just think they've chosen to give her more of a witch looking costume, and she just wears plain clothes. It's not like she has a get up.
Yeah,
but it's more like there's a word for it for the style. But she looks. It's just witchy looking.
Yeah, I mean, I could totally be wrong. I just wish. I don't know. It's like everyone else is so colorful and cool looking.
Yeah.
All the Avengers are cool. So why does she have to look just like a normal person with like just a slight red hue to her? And then why in like the upcoming movies where everyone has all these crazy costumes and stuff, they're like, yeah, and hey, Elizabeth Olsen, we're gonna give you that red leather jacket again. You excited about that? Yeah, I know there's a guy over there that's like a totally different color as a human, and there's like Vision, and there's the Iron Man suit and stuff. We got you that red leather jacket again, though.
You would think that like
okay, cool. I guess
you would almost think that Ultron would like build them protective suits.
Oh, that would have been cool. That's such an easy fix.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really understand why not.
Yeah,
that's like one thing that's so important to this whole series is like the new suit that a character wears in the new movie. So it's an interesting choice. It's almost just like an oversight.
Yeah, and it also is kind of weird in like a series where Iron Man can literally do anything ever. Why can't he just give away 2 cool looking suits? If you're gonna have Iron Man be able to do anything conceivable,
he's giving away too many.
Why can't he just give him like a specific suit, like a la Edna Mode from Incredibles? That looks
firstly,
cool?
Micah, they wouldn't accept it for most of the movie. They're not even really on board with him until the end.
I'm kind of talking even beyond this.
But he's already given one to Don Cheadle and Gwyneth Paltrow. They don't get it anymore.
I don't know why I went on such a long rant about that. I didn't even realize I felt that way until right now. I just think I think that's half of the reason why I don't really like her character is she's not fun to look at.
Yeah.
There's nothing like exciting to see. Okay, so during this sequence, we also get introduced to the Hulk lullaby, which Scarlett Johansson, like, calms the Hulk
like
down
soothing.
and gets him to become Bruce Banner again. Tony has his dream, and in his dream, Captain America says, "Why didn't you do more?" as he dies, which is pretty
Okay,
cool.
let's fast forward, though, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on.
Yeah.
So they were back at the Avengers base.
Yeah.
And they're like basically Jeremy Renner gets injured and they're healing him by basically like grafting his own skin like back on him.
Yeah.
Which is just showing that is like been achieved in medical science, that they can create human tissue, or they can just create tissue.
I will say, to go along with what you're saying, the Joss Whedon does a really good job of like putting the gun in the cabinet.
Yes.
And what I mean by that for the listener is, like, if you're going to have a character at the end of a movie pull out a gun from his cabinet and shoot someone, you need to establish at the beginning of the movie or somewhere before that happens that there is a gun in his cabinet.
That way, when Vision's created, you're not just freaking out that it's so dumb, which is what I did the first time I saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, meanwhile, they're also like Tony and Bruce are trying to figure out the scepter thing, and they discover that the thing inside the scepter is almost like a living entity.
Yeah.
Or it has the opportunity or the possibility of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so Tony's like, we should try and use that.
Yeah.
We should try and use it to protect the world.
A suit of armor around the world.
Yeah, which is such an interesting idea.
Yeah.
And Bruce is providing the like, are you sure that's a good idea?
Yeah.
For all of these reasons. And Jarvis starts trying, like, Bruce, Tony, and Jarvis are like working on making something like that even possible.
Yeah.
I just burped into the mic.
I've been burping off mic.
That one can't, you know how sometimes they just come without warning.
Yeah, I know.
So then as they're kind of figuring that out and Jarvis is running through possibilities, there's a party celebrating that they got the scepter.
Yeah. Oh, one thing though before we take off, I just want to say really quick. I really like how in this movie, Bruce Banner like really gets to be a scientist.
Yeah.
Because I think it helps show how much he's struggling with being the Hulk, because you see that this is like what he's actually good at. He doesn't want to be good at smashing stuff. Mm-hmm. He doesn't care about that.
He doesn't want to be known for that either.
Yeah, and it also pays off him becoming Professor Hulk in Endgame a little more, like finding the best of both worlds and becoming like a Hulk. And I don't know.
Yeah, like finding a balance.
Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah,
I like that about it. But yeah, now we're at the party.
We're at the party. Everyone's having a great time. I think it's cool that there are so many veterans there. Because that was definitely like a very big choice, that there are like a ton of veterans there.
And they do that thing where Thor's talking about this 1,000-year-old liquor, and he says like, no, a mortal couldn't really handle it. Mm-hmm. And then Stan Lee says, "Stop trying to scare us." And he's a veteran, and he takes a swig.
Well, what does he say? He's like, we've been on Omaha Beach or something like that.
Stop trying to scare us. And then he takes it, and then it cuts to like all the old men, like 1 minute later, completely blasted out of their minds after having like an ounce of this liquor. Yeah, that's a
very
cool
funny touch.
It's also just that's actually some pretty cool world building. Like, on Asgard they have 1,000-year-old
liquor,
alcohol,
whatever this is,
and they're gods, so they can like take that. I think that's actually like so cool.
I was thinking before that Stan Lee made his appearance that Captain America was going to drink it and it was going to actually affect him. Because remember, he can't get drunk.
Oh yeah, that would have been kind of a fun.
I like where they went with it.
Yeah,
but I equally would have liked if they had done that. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so then you have a moment with Bruce and Scarlett at the bar, and they're flirting, and you're like, okay, this is a will they won't they, and this will be this will be an underlying thing throughout the movie of will they won't they, because I would say they have good chemistry.
Yeah.
And I would also say Scarlett is a lot better in this movie.
Yeah, I'm gonna go so far as to say, before we started this series, I was anti Scarlett Johansson, and I think, I'm not saying like I'm going to go see a Scarlett Johansson movie whenever she comes out with a movie, but I will say I think I misjudged her in her acting. Mm-hmm. Because I think in Iron Man 2 and Avengers, she was more a victim to how her character was written. Because as the series progresses, they get better at writing her character, and therefore she's better. And so
The one thing
she didn't bother me at all in Endgame because she had like an actual
Yes.
strong, interesting arc.
The only thing that bothers me in this movie is just her boobs are out the entire time, especially in this dress. It's just like, oh, there are her boobs, and then when later on when there when there are some like robots attack, we'll get to that in a second. But like Bruce like falls into her boobs, and it's like
they pull the How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
I know, and it's like, shut up about that. That's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Anyway, they have chemistry and they're nice and whatever. But it's the party's winding down and it's just the Avengers now, and everyone's trying to lift Thor's hammer. And I love this scene.
Yeah.
Because no one can do it. Not even Iron Man and Don Cheadle together with their like Iron Man arms can do it. And then Captain America goes up and is like, oh, I guess I'll just give it a try. Everyone else is trying. And it's just such a perfect shot. Because it shows the hammer and then perfectly focused in the background is Thor's face.
Yeah.
And you hear that Captain America barely lifts the hammer.
Yeah.
And Thor's face just loses expression.
Yeah, and then Thor like you see the hammer slightly move.
Yeah.
And then Captain America kind of walks away because of course you like a mere mortal couldn't do it. Like, only one worthy of ruling Asgard could pick up the hammer, and he slightly moves it, and Thor loses all expression, and then Cap's like, I guess I couldn't do it, and then Thor's like, oh. Yes, yeah,
of course
totally,
not.
No, and you can tell he's like, oh crap, he could lift it, which then pays off in Endgame.
Yes,
when Cap does wield the hammer, and Thor goes, I knew it.
Yeah,
which my sister pointed out, and I thought I totally misunderstood what she was saying, and I was like, anyway, you were right, Rebecca. That's all that to say. You were right in that. Anyway. And there's also that great thing where Don Cheadle is kind of this like hilarious side character in the series. Like I don't remember him really being there that much, but he's at the party and he's telling Iron Man and Thor, or no, it's Iron Man and Thor the story, and he's like, so then I threw the tank up on the ambassador's porch and I said, there's your tank, and they stand there and they're just going, okay, and he goes, that's the story, and they're kind of like, oh yeah, that's a really good story, because of course they have way better stories than he does. And then it cuts to him later in the party and he's telling people who aren't superheroes and they all think it's amazing.
I think that's such a funny touch.
So just it's funny that throughout the series War Machine is kind of like, yeah, I'm as good as the Avengers, and then they do stuff and he's like, okay,
they're still great. Like he's no better than them or anything, not like he means to be.
Yeah.
But it grounds him as a person.
But then throughout this, we cut to the Ultron is awakening, and he fights off Jarvis, and he creates a robot form. And I like
that whole sequence. It's cool.
Yeah, and I like how they do I think this is what you're just talking about, but they do the sequence where they're like in each other's minds, and you just see the lights going off and like weird computer stuff moving around, and it's like metaphysical, which we have seen stuff like that in the series, but I don't know, I like that a lot. And then he comes up to the party,
half created,
and he threatens them basically.
Oh my gosh! And let me just go off for a second about the wonderful creation of motion capture. Because you give James Spader's voice, which is just, that's really, if they had just done that no motion capture, I probably would have been satisfied because I just love his voice. He's a perfect casting choice for that.
We need to find out if he narrates any books, because we got to listen to those.
She would be so good at narrating a book. But not only that is they have captured, because it's motion, they've literally captured his James Spader mannerisms, which is another reason why he's a perfect casting choice, is because of the mannerisms that we see often, just like him in other movies or TV shows. And like this part when he's like stumbling around and like it looks like he's bleeding, but it's just like oil like spilling out of him. He looks like a monster. Like this is a horror shot, and his head's kind of swinging around, and it's like the first time he's not like it technically is the first time he's taking in everything, but because he is a computer, he knows everything already. And he even more, which is more dangerous because he's an artificial intelligence. He's like, I have been created to protect the world, and by protecting it, I've decided that in order to protect it, I need to force it to evolve.
Yeah.
Basically because the Avengers are too violent. Humans are too violent. The thing to do is to get rid of them. Mm-hmm. Which is like, I am on board with that. Yeah. That's cool.
Very, very cool. Then they fight him off. Mm-hmm. You know, but of course he's in like the internet and stuff, so it doesn't hurt him in any way. Mm-hmm. And that's when Tony says that he's talking about Earth, and he's like, this is just Earth. Like he goes space, that's the end game. Mm-hmm. And Jordan and I like drop our jaws, and we're like, no way. First Easter egg.
Oh, besides knowing that the scepter contains the vision.
Yeah.
Or not vision, stone. But the Mind Stone. Yeah. You said that, yeah.
And then he says, what happens if we lose? And Captain America's like, we'll do that together. Or something. He says something like that, and you're like, that's cool because they do lose. Yeah. And they did it. They actually didn't do it together, but then they have to like try again together.
Yeah.
And it's that group of people.
Yeah.
Which again is like, it was such a smart idea on Infinity War to keep the original Avengers alive and like kill off most of the rest so that they could finish their story.
Yeah. Bravo.
Yeah. And then I got a note here that says accent's so bad. You want to elaborate on that?
Scarlet Witch, I mean, and her brother, but more Scarlet Witch than anything. They are Eastern European, so they have these accents, which makes sense. Mm-hmm. But like I said while we were watching it, she should have taken a card right out of Scarlett Johansson's playbook and not have done the accent, because Scarlett Johansson is Russian.
Yeah, that's what I don't understand. And she doesn't have an accent. They're like, there's 3 Russian people in these movies, and 2 of them have bad accents. Mm-hmm. One of them doesn't have an accent ever.
Who's the other one?
The twins in Scarlett Johansson.
Okay.
And then Scarlet Witch just, I think in the next movie, just doesn't have one. And they never are like, oh, Scarlett Johansson doesn't have an accent anymore because she perfected the art of American accents because she worked in America forever.
Yeah.
They never like say anything like that. They're just like, I was born in Russia, raised in Russia, but you don't have a Russian accent? Which is weird.
It's easily to like be annoyed by that. I would rather them not have it because it's something about Russian, Eastern European accents in American movies.
Yeah, if
are
they're
really
not
distracting.
Perfect, if they're not perfect, they're really distracting.
So like her accent is pretty distracting. It's probably more distracting though because we know that she doesn't have one later on.
Yeah.
So it's just such a weird choice. I wonder if someone told her in the next movie not to do it.
Yeah. Because
she becomes more important and like audiences did not like it.
Yeah, I don't know what the thing is.
Weird.
But or maybe I don't know. But I have nothing against the actual Russian accent in general. I just there's something about that accent specifically where if it's not perfect, it sounds really bad.
Yeah. And I think that accent is easy to make it stereotypical.
Yes. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
In the same way of like just doing like a Cockney accent for Britain, you know? You're like, well, there's other dialects there, you know? And so Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, they're teaming up with Ultron, and
because
their house was bombed, and they saw one of the bombs didn't go off, and it killed their parents. One bomb went off, killed their parents. The other one didn't, and they were sitting there, and it says Stark on the side. Because as we remember, before he changed his ways, he used to sell weapons. Mm-hmm.
And they said this happened 10 years ago. So like, this was like, during the time when he was doing that.
Mm-hmm. And so,
but I think like it's interesting as the movie progresses, and you see like they have a personal vendetta against Stark more than anything, and the Avengers are just an extension of that. And then you do see like a lot, like you said, by the end of the movie, everything happens because of Tony.
Yeah,
like he is the one who wants to create Ultron. He is the one who like does create Ultron.
Yeah,
and it's like I would say he does it with pure intentions. He wants to protect people, but it's kind of like a classic Tony thing where he rejects, even though he's doing it to better people, he almost rejects that and cuts corners to get it done. And it's like, this is a consequence of that. Like, you're overzealous about it,
Mm-hmm.
and you weren't willing to like work harder on it. And now look what's happening.
Well, I think he works hard on it. He's just so ambitious. It's just that classic thing of like, if you have the power, do you use it to prevent things from happening? It's like what Cap says when they're at the farm, where he's like, nothing good ever came from someone trying to prevent a war. When they try to prevent a war, there's genocide, there's like murder and stuff like that. So he's like, he's kind of arguing like, you can't prevent wars. They just have to happen, and you have to try and end them. Mm-hmm. Really interesting point. Mm-hmm. Goes along with Cap's good arc. And then somehow they discover Ulysses Claw. Ulysses Claw.
Andy Serkis.
Yes.
And I freaked the F out at this part because, like I said, didn't like the movie, so I forgot a lot of it. Mm-hmm. And I'm surprised that I forgot Andy Serkis because I love Andy Serkis, especially at that time when I'd first seen it.
Yeah.
And when I saw the picture, I was just like, there's a picture of him as a character? How cool. Yeah. And then when they like go to meet with him, I was like, no way. He's like in the movie.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to say is what's kind of interesting about this universe and this franchise in general is you can have, because I think when I first watched the movie, I was like, why would you even hire him to be in a movie for 10 minutes?
Right. Which
should
probably made me like the movie less for that reason.
Yeah, it's kind of like, what the heck? But I think the idea is that they have this huge universe and they put all these characters in there as long as they make sense so that they can be explored at future dates if people want to. Mm-hmm. And he's one of those characters where when they were writing Black Panther, they're like, yeah, he can play like a significant role. And so then you go back and watch this and you're like, oh, cool. This isn't just this isn't like they just hired Andy Serkis to be in Black Panther. It's like, no, he was in the series before. He's like been in the world already.
And what's
like, it's pretty cool.
Like bigger than that is that's like vibranium becomes a thing.
Yeah.
Is it vibranium? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
It's like, we know that that's what his shield is made out of, right?
Yeah.
But it's like we learned that it's bigger than that. And I didn't understand at the time that it actually was. Mm-hmm. It's because they're mentioning Africa and all this stuff.
They mention Wakanda.
Yeah, so it's like, that's insane. And then not only that, we see how Andy Serkis loses his arm.
Yeah, Ultron just cuts it off because he's mad that he compares him to Tony.
And it's just like, that was like insane to me. I thought that in Black Panther, it was just a fun style choice.
That's what I thought too. I didn't remember him being in anything else.
No. Although
I think he might be in Civil War.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he might be. But I don't remember for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, all of that is the weird thing about this series that you and I keep coming up against is it doesn't reach its full potential unless you watch everything and then you watch it all again.
Yeah.
Like, because I mean, if they continue at the trajectory that they're going at, like when they finish Phase 4, and if we ever decided to like rewatch all the movies, we'd be like, oh, this movie's even better now.
Yeah.
Which, you know, the whole point of this podcast is just like learning about franchises and seeing what's good and what's bad. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing, but sometimes it does hurt the movies.
I always think that it's good business-wise to make a movie rewatchable.
Yeah. Because,
like, if you make a movie with all these hidden things or a super complicated, but it's not boring complicated, like Inception, it's like that movie... One is just incredible in all its ways, but also it's like people. I'm sure that's
kind of
so
boring though. Inception.
Don't even.
I'm kidding. But, of course, I love that movie.
A lot of people, like rented that movie. People paid more money. To see that movie multiple times, whether in theaters. Yeah, because it was so interesting and intriguing.
Yeah.
Same with this, because it's so big. People went several times to these movies.
Yeah.
And continue to like spend money on them. Mm-hmm. I think stuff like that is pretty interesting.
I think it's really cool. I think a lot of this movie, and there were actually a lot of complaints when it came out, you know, like a lot of the Infinity Stone stuff and like Thor's dream sequence, like since you don't see where it goes, you're watching the movie and you're like, can't you just make a movie that's a movie?
Yeah.
Why do you have to tease all this other stuff? So I think there is that negative like frustration of like, what are they talking about? Like Asgard's getting destroyed or something
But we
like
now
that?
know the payoff.
But now
is that
we
what
know
they
the
said in the
payoff.
Asgard thing?
Well, they were hinting at that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
And so it's like now we know the payoff. But then it's like you can't put too much of that in a movie because it does hurt it.
It's true, for sure.
I think this one mostly works. I think the Thor stuff, I don't know why he had to do it twice, because he saw the dream sequence in the scene we're talking about right now on the boat with Ulysses Claw and Ultron, because Scarlet Witch gives him a dream, and it's like, that's enough. You don't have to go to a cave to explore that more.
I just kind of feel like they didn't know what else to do with this character.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the studio really
true.
wanted from that.
He doesn't really have anything to do in this
doesn't,
movie.
which I find interesting. Like, the only purpose that he served early on was he was responsible of taking the scepter back to Asgard. And as soon as
you're right.
As soon as that was taken away from him, I don't know, it's like, oh, well, he has to wait until later on to actually do that, which obviously he doesn't get to do.
Yeah.
But that's kind of was his only purpose.
Yeah, it's so funny. I think of the Avengers, he is the one that, like, really not until phase 3 do they actually are like, oh, this is what we're doing with Thor. Like, they can't figure out what to do with him.
However, he is important because he is like the only one who knows what an Infinity Stone is.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, because there's that part in the movie when he's explaining what Infinity Stones are, which has been explained 4 times already.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's smart. They need to keep explaining it.
Yeah.
For all the other stuff, but without him, they wouldn't because like the stone is created with like materials that are not of this world, so we can't understand it. That's why we need this god to tell us how to understand it.
That's true.
He's like helping the MacGuffin more than anything.
Yeah.
And then he has a cool hammer.
Yeah, but it's kind of a bummer because for me personally, throughout like all the cinematic universe until Ragnarok, I never liked Thor. I thought he was like lame and stupid.
Me too.
And then his role in the Avengers 3 and 4 is like really significant. And they finally, I feel like now they actually like know what to do with Thor.
Yeah.
And now I love him. He's like one of my faves.
Yeah.
And so when we go back, I like his acting and I like his Asgard stuff, as we've discussed. But his Earth stuff just is kind of like, okay.
Well, I think part of that, or a big part of that, is he is too big for Earth.
Yeah.
So there's just nothing for him to do. Because he is not of this world. He's beyond it. Not even because he's a god, but like he is royalty. What does he have to do around here?
Right.
Besides protect Jane. Like that's kind of his only motive. I mean, now it's for this Infinity Stone, which is pretty important, but he's just too big for it.
Yeah.
And that's why we like him later on, because it's finally gotten big enough for him to get involved.
Yeah, I think, you just cracked Thor for me.
You're welcome.
You cracked him open like a dang egg.
You're welcome.
So in this sequence, back to the movie, Scarlet Witch gives everyone dreams.
Let's fast forward through this. We've talked about it way too many times.
But Black Widow is at the school, assassin. Cap is at a dance with Agent Carter back in the 40s, and then the room disappears.
Well, people disappear in the room, and he's alone.
Yes. Hulk comes out. Oh, yeah, so this is when Hulk attacks and like goes crazy in the city, and Iron Man has to fight him with the Hulkbuster scene.
I kind of wish that scene was shorter.
Yeah, well, here's the weird thing about that scene. I think that scene got a lot of flack because it's just so gratuitous, and they just like completely destroy a city, which they need to do to get the Avengers like off the grid because people don't like them anymore. But I think people are watching it and they're like, oh my gosh, like they just like billions of dollars of damage.
I almost just wish that they had flattened that building and then that was it.
Yeah. But it's also, and I'm sure this was already in pre-production, so I'm not sure this was a response to fans because I think they would have already been working on this. But if you remember in Civil War, the destruction of Sokovia and the Hulkbuster area is the reason they want to register the superheroes.
Oh, that makes sense.
And that's why the Civil War starts between the superheroes. So it's one of those things where, like, when you watch it without that knowledge, you're like, this is way too much. But then when you watch it with that knowledge, you're like, pretty interesting. So, anyway.
Civil War just got a little bit more interesting for me, about 2%.
2%. Then they go to Hawkeye's house. where we learn he's got a family, he's got a kid.
And the whole time previously he's like, oh yeah, I wish I had a girlfriend, or like, I can't get a girlfriend, or
yeah, but then we
just
find
playing
out
it off.
he's got a dang wife, he's got a dang daughter, he's got a dang son, and she's pregnant with another son.
His wife is not the son.
Is that what I said?
It sounded like you said he's got a daughter and he's got a son who's pregnant with another son.
Well, he's
his
a
wife,
mutant. He's a mutant.
No.
Yeah.
So it's like right after that big huge scene, this is kind of like the beginning of Act 2.
Yeah.
Like a breather, because there's been a lot of stuff going on, and it's almost like a catch up of what's going on. I'm going to kind of speed through this because I feel like we've been talking for so long. But you have Captain America and Tony fighting about something, and then Hawkeye's wife asks Tony to go work on their tractor, and then you find out that Nick Fury's here. And then he is here. Why?
Well, it was like a safe house for him as well, I think, is the idea. And also, one thing that's just kind of cool is like the Avengers are so, like, they have so many issues and stuff, and Hawkeye's just got his head on his shoulders.
Yeah.
And
I like Hawkeye
nice.
more, and I never
liked Hawkeye, and I'm liking him more.
Oh, I did like him. I liked him in Endgame.
Like. Oh, he's really good.
It almost like he came to fruition in Endgame for me, but this just actually makes it better.
Yeah.
For me.
And it is cool that he addresses later in the movie. He's like, I'm a guy with arrows. None of this makes sense.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, cool. You just said
the
thing that I thought.
Yeah. Oh, and before that, there's a really, really good character development scene between Bruce and Scarlett Johansson.
Yes.
Where she's like basically, I want to be with you. And he's like, you can't. You'll probably get killed by me by accident because I'm green and mean. And he's like, also like, I can't give you this, like a family and a house. And she's like, I can't give you that either.
Yeah, because she can't have kids.
She was sterilized when she was an assassin.
And she's like, she does some heavy
really
lifting
good
acting.
acting.
Because her crying is good.
Yeah. But also, so does Mark, because you see that expression on his face where on his face where he finally understands, like, she's fighting for him.
Yeah.
And she wants him. And it's just such a great scene.
It almost feels like they really had this figured out, and then later people were like, nah.
Yeah. I wonder what we'll think later on.
Yeah.
Like, if it'll be like, okay, this is interesting take on all of this.
Yeah.
But who knows right now. But anyway, so then they're all sitting in the house with Nick, and what is Nick talking to them about?
He says something to the effect of, like, we're tracking Ultron, and I can help you figure out a couple of places to find him, or something like that.
Okay.
And then that's when they leave, and they go chase the semi where Ultron is creating his vision, like his physical form with the Infinity Stone.
Mm-hmm. And he goes to the woman who was healing Hawkeye with that medical science of like creating tissue.
Yeah, and he does the Mind Stone thing from Avengers where it like makes her mind control.
Submissive. Yeah. So she is creating it.
Yeah.
And then the Avengers show up.
Yeah.
To stop him.
And then there's that sequence where they're chasing on the semi, really cool.
And this is in Korea. Something I said that I really like in this movie is I think it's a good mark of an action movie, because action movies get away with it.
Yeah.
They can go literally everywhere in the world. And it's so fun. So they finally, because in the first Avengers, it all takes place in New York.
Yeah,
but this
was
like
the right call.
Yeah.
But this one, it's like let's get out of there.
It takes place in South Africa for a little bit, and it looks like South Africa. Then it takes place in South Korea for a little bit, and it's like that looks really cool too.
Yeah,
and then it takes place in wherever that place in Eastern Europe is.
Yeah.
Which is like just
Sokovia.
Several different locations. And that's the reason why like the Bourne series and Mission Impossible and John Wick, like why they're so interesting to me, a part of it is because they like the culture becomes part of what's going on.
Yeah.
It's just it's a fun opportunity to use it. And they use it in this movie.
And just on like a totally basic practical level, you can just look at different things so you're more visually stimulated.
That, and it's showing that what the Avengers do, protect, or affect
is global.
Yeah. Not just New York.
Think globally, act locally.
Yes.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Yes.
So then, like, Scarlett Johansson jumps out of a plane on a motorcycle, which is cool. And Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver realize what Ultron is doing.
That he's going to kill everyone.
Yeah, and they switch sides, which is cool. And they get Vision, and that's cool. Mm-hmm. I mean, and then they debate on whether they should make... Because Tony says...
I have a question.
Yes, okay. Well, okay. One quick second.
Okay.
So then Tony, they're back. They've retrieved the body, and Ultron didn't upload his whole self to it yet.
So it's not done.
And then Tony's like, "We could finish it, but we can upload Jarvis. I found him. He didn't get killed.
Yeah,
he was in the the ether or whatever.
Yeah,
and not the ether. That's an Infinity Stone.
Yeah.
He was just out there like hiding.
Well, like Ultron had just taken him apart.
Yeah."
Like dismembered him.
Yeah, but didn't he say something like it was like a fake program to like trick him so he could hide him?
Well, yeah, it was also like Jarvis wasn't dead, and Jarvis knew that he wasn't dead, but he didn't know what to do.
Yeah,
like Jarvis couldn't have put himself back together. It had to have been Tony who found him.
Oh, okay.
I think that's how he explained
it.
That.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So like. Tony convinces Bruce to help him finish this, to finish Vision, and then like all the Avengers show up and are like, "This is bad."
They're like, "This is the same thing that just happened. What are you doing?"
Yeah, and then why does Thor come and finish it?
Because he saw the vision in the cave.
Okay.
Where it was like he saw the stones, and there's that cool little image of the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah. So does that mean he's like, "Oh, if we create this, then that can't be done," in his mind?
I think so.
Like someone's not going to get all of them?
I think it's one of those things that we have to do a lot of assuming, but it's never really said. Well, no, he does say a line of dialogue. I don't remember what it is, though. Because remember, he shoots his lightning, and it like makes Vision really fast.
Yeah, it's like Frankenstein.
Yeah, which you said, which is cool.
Yeah, I wonder if he's like, it's better to create one Infinity Stone. It's better to like... finish this Infinity Stone thing rather than like have someone collect all of the Infinity Stones.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
So then Vision's created.
Yeah, and he comes out and he says, I am, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Little on the blasphemy side.
Yeah.
But it is interesting because he is like a god in a certain respect. And he picks up Thor's hammer right off the bat.
Yeah.
So then I think that lets everyone know, and the audience, like, no, his intentions are good.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point.
So,
yeah.
And they've already established earlier, like, gun in the cabinet thing, that it's like no one can pick it up unless they're worthy, and Vision is worthy.
Yeah.
And I think Vision creation is really cool. And the thing that is just so mind-blowing to me, first Iron Man movie, 2008. This is 7 years later. Like, I don't know if they planned on actually making Jarvis Vision at some point, but they hired someone in 2006 when they were casting Iron Man.
What's that guy's name?
Paul Bettany.
Yeah.
To be the voice of that. And he was just being a voice actor, and now he is physically in the series.
It's pretty cool.
I think that's so cool.
I have one single issue.
Yeah.
That's it's just more aesthetic than anything.
Yeah.
The cape thing still was annoying to me. And I think it's because, like, I know that capes were created a very long time ago in comics because they look good. They look
Incredibles ruined capes for everybody.
They did. But, they look like a superhero if they have a cape. I know not all of the Avengers have capes. I know that. But, like, why does he need to have a cape?
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because he probably has a cape in the comic books.
Yeah, it's just like at this point in this day and age, it's so impractical to me. The only reason it makes sense for Thor to me is because he is like royalty.
Oh, maybe he's godlike?
Who, Thor?
And Vision is godlike and royalty as well.
Yeah, but he's a computer. He can get over it.
Yeah, but actually, if you put it that way, it's kind of cool that both of them have capes. Also, see, I think if I go back to my Scarlet Witch and Bobo Head announcement.
Quicksilver?
Yeah, they both... It's like, okay, so you're going to have a guy come out of a computer, be created. He looks amazing. I love his makeup and design. And then he's going to create a cape, but they can't look even remotely cool.
Yeah.
Just make them look cool if Vision is going to be in the same movie. Come on.
Yeah,
know
maybe
what
they
I mean?
need people to look so stupid so the Vision would look better.
Also, Black Widow has been captured at this point.
By Ultron.
Yeah. And then we go to Sokovia. We're at the final battle.
Wait, Ultron does a cool thing when he has her that I liked. When Scarlett Johansson wakes up and he's like, "Oh, good, you're awake." And she's really confused because she doesn't know where she is, but she knows she's with Ultron.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You can see what I'm doing because there's no one else here to watch."
Yeah.
It's interesting because he is sentient.
Yeah.
And he is like, he has pride. Like he wants people to like glorify him.
Yeah.
And what he's doing. In a way, he's godlike, but in a bad way.
Yeah.
And I love that part of his character.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He's a good villain. He's a really good
Pro
villain.
Ultron.
Not his ideology though.
No.
So then they start evacuating Sokovia.
Well, we'll get into it later. I guess.
They know that he's over there.
Yeah.
And he's going to, we find out he's going to lift up the city and drop it, which will
create a meteor,
destroy the Earth.
Yeah.
And so the Avengers have got to stop him. And there's a lot of fighting here. It's
a lot of people that they have to evacuate.
Pretty decent action sequences. I don't really have any issues.
I don't feel like
it.
I got that bored actually.
I didn't
during this one.
And then there's that really cool scene where they're all fighting off all these like flying Ultrons, and it's a one shot again, and it's floating around them. That looks really cool.
That's cool. This is again where it's gonna get hard. Like we shouldn't describe it.
Yeah,
like,
I'm kind of like skipping all the.
There was this one extra that they keep showing us, this woman and her son, and she's wearing this nightgown, and it's just like very revealing, and they keep showing her, and it's like, why? Odd choice to me.
Yeah.
Continue with whatever.
It's
else.
always kind of odd in movies like this when they follow a non-speaking like extra for more than one shot. To me, it is.
Me too.
I know sometimes they're trying to show like a specific one that they're saving, but it's weird when they like cut back to them later. I don't know.
It's almost like they not have as many extras as they wanted? Like that's
I think they're trying to personalize it, but I'm like, you've gone this far. Like I don't need you to personalize what's happening. That much.
Something about Ultron that I do like that I get on board with him as a villain is he has one of those motives that are like to him it's like a good solution, and technically it is a solution to the problem, but it's not the right one. And he believes in it, and it's not that he like, I mean, I think he does have like hatred inside him for like the Avengers and stuff, and I think that a part of him does like not like humans but it's because of what they're capable of. They're capable of bad things, but he is like rejected to see the good. So it's just a cool motive. And he's not like, he's bad, but he's not like 100% bad. Like he has intentions. Like some good intentions too.
Totally. Then Friday, Tony Stark's new voice in his head comes in, and there's no explanation. That's an issue I have. Small one, but it's just kind of weird.
Maybe they address it later.
Maybe. You'd think they'd address it then, though. That must be in the 3 hour and 15-minute cut. And then the helicarrier comes in because they realize the only way to save these people is to escort them off of this island that's flying in the sky. And so Nick Fury comes up, and he's like, I got a S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, and there's like S.H.I.E.L.D. workers. And the only thing I can think of is, so the entire ramifications of Winter Soldier don't matter. I mean, that's actually like probably my biggest complaint with the movie is like, okay, so Winter Soldier went to all this trouble to establish that S.H.I.E.L.D. got destroyed. And then, it's like, well, they only had one helicarrier, but they still were able to save like the whole city. And that feels like a total like take back.
Do you think so?
To me it does. It's just kind of like, no, S.H.I.E.L.D. should be destroyed. And they even like intentionally, Nick Fury was like, no, we're done. And now they're just like, and S.H.I.E.L.D.'s back. So I'm like, that's probably my actually biggest complaint with the movie. Because it doesn't.
Why couldn't they just have created a new organization with a new name?
Or just done something else? Like, like if Nick Fury had to figure out something else to do. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is, but it just. It's
a cop-out.
Yeah, and it kind of like takes away the stakes of what they set up. They're just like, oh, actually, never mind. Okay. So we had one extra helicarrier, and now S.H.I.E.L.D.'s just back, and it's good, and they have workers, and there were like a ton of people on the ship and outside of the ship and stuff. I'm like, okay. So
Yeah.
it never stopped. It didn't stop. And
Very
he
weird.
didn't intentionally think I'm going to destroy S.H.I.E.L.D. So Winter Soldier, kind of a pointless like addition in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So don't like that. Quick Boy dies. Hulk flies away to a different planet. And
I feel like you can hear my breathing.
probably, I mean, it's a microphone. But yeah, Hulk flies away. Quick Boy dies, and Scarlet Witch is like really sad about it, and she kills Ultron. They're able to destroy the island. They succeed, and then Tony and Steve...
Well, they destroy it, but it all falls like in the ocean.
Yeah. Tony and Steve have this discussion about how, like, Cap can never settle down because his home is the military, and he never, he was frozen for the time that he should have been living his life. And then Tony is like, maybe one day I'll be able to have that cabin and those kids and stuff like that. And then when you watch Endgame, you're like, they both like were able to they were able to get that thing that they didn't think they could get.
Mm-hmm.
Which that ending, Jordan and I were just like, oh my gosh, that's so much better now. And then the movie ends, and the post-credit scene is Thanos reaching into his kitchen cupboard, grabbing the Infinity Gauntlet and saying, I'll do it myself. And he still looks really purple and pretty bad.
Yeah, his face is still too big.
Yeah.
I think something too that like I never liked in watching these movies the first time is you see like a couple Thanos cutscenes and you're like, okay, so he's definitely like gonna be like the bad guy of all bad guys. How many more movies do I have to watch before we get there? Like I always felt that way.
Yeah, I felt that too.
At the same time, it's like it's cool now. Like this is what we're talking about because we're doing all these watches and now it's exciting. But the first time watching them, it's just like, oh my gosh.
Well, and I think because his design wasn't totally figured out yet.
Yeah.
I remember, we discussed this on our way to Infinity War, where it was like, I don't know how I'm actually gonna like this character because he's just a big bad twirly mustache bad guy, and then you find out he's like one of the most interesting characters in the whole universe. So as movies go, I like it. I think it's pretty good. I'm really not crazy about this movie. I would put it, well, we'll do our ranks tomorrow. I mean, not next week. But there's like a lot of good. There's something about the movie I can't put my finger on that like just doesn't excite me. But generally, I think it's a good movie.
I enjoy this much, much more than the first time I saw it.
Yeah.
I think because of all those little Easter eggs made it all better for me. I liked Ultron much more this time. And I just overall just understood it all better this time around.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it more.
And I think as watching this in a sequence, I think we're now kind of at the point where you just have to watch all of them.
Yeah.
Like from here on out, it's kind of like, I mean, there's still like, you could probably skip Ant-Man.
Yeah.
But still to get the whole story, it's really starting to get complicated at this point. Because, that was one of our things when we started this is like, okay, can you just watch the Iron Man movies by themselves? Can you just watch these movies by themselves? From this point on, it's pretty much like, sorry, you got to watch all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, you can still fudge it a little bit.
I would get rid of Ant-Man. I don't think you need to watch it for any reason.
No. Yeah.
The only reason to watch Ant-Man, it would be the second one, and only because of the quantum space.
Which you don't really need, because they explain it well in the...
They do explain it pretty well in Endgame.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing I can think of.
Just read a synopsis so you don't have to watch it. Although the last sequence in that movie's cool, where they're fighting and the cars are getting big and small.
Anyway.
Okay. That's it. We did it.
Thanks for listening to this one. We hope you enjoyed it.
I know I did.
More this time around. And we mean the movie, not the podcast.
I hope you enjoyed the podcast.
But we hope that you're watching along. But if you're not, we hope that you're just enjoying listening to us talk about movies, because that's what we love doing, talking about movies.
Yeah, next week, we're hitting up Ant-Man. And should we announce this week what our next series is going to be?
No, we have to do it in the last...
Well, that way, if they need to get a hold of the movie, they can... That's what we did last.
Okay, fine.
I just want to announce.
Okay.
Guys, next week we're doing Ant-Man. The following week, we are starting a 5-part series on the one and the only, the Green Man himself, Mr. Shrek. We're doing the Shrek series. And my first thoughts are I feel like I'm not going to like any of them, even though I liked him when I was a kid.
I'm just worried.
So, somebody once told me the world was going to roll me. See you guys later.